Well, to answer in regards to what my view is around what feminine power is, I think that, there's so many different feminine archetypes, and I think that they're all equally powerful.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Briana Bowley, the women's trauma coach. Welcome to the show, Briana. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Amazing. I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like there is so much we can talk about when it comes to like femininity and the power of feminine. And yeah, to all all the people who see us right now, we're watching it on YouTube. This is my dog. Her name is Toffee, and she just needs some love, so she's just gonna be chilling on my knees, and hopefully she's not gonna bark or make any sounds, guys. But if she does, then I'm sorry, but she just needs some love right now, so she's gonna just chill here with us. And so I'm super curious, Briana, how did you start your journey as a coach? Like, what sparked this urge to help others? And, maybe there is a big story behind it. Usually there is. So I'm super curious about your story and how did it all start? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I'll give you the condensed version of the story because otherwise it can be a bit of a long story. But I, I think I've always sort of felt a calling to some form of coaching. I've been that person who people naturally come to me wanting advice. And so I began my journey working as a personal trainer and a massage therapist, and working with a lot of athletes in helping them manage injury and just overall improve their performance. And at the time, I was also, I got into fitness modeling, which is basically a form of bodybuilding, and went through my own kind of transformational journey in that, and the process of losing, it was 20 kilos for me from start of my prep to stage. And then coming out of that experience, kind of having this yo-yo, putting the weight back on and going through the whole I guess, mental stress of going from being incredibly lean and getting all of this attention from people for, looking like this athlete to looking like a regular person. And so whilst that was playing out, I was also having this experience with many of my weight loss clients of them sort of, that they were having these highly successful weight loss regimes, but mentally they still believed that they were overweight, and so I realized that there was something missing. I realized that it didn't really matter how much we transformed physically if our mind, if we were still processing the world in the same way that we have always, like we're still ultimately the same person. We're just in a slightly different meat suit, if you want to call it that. And so that had me spiral into this like obsessive self-development journey of, I just, everything I could get my hands on to do with the mind, the body, all of it. I was all over it. And so that had me then move into working with high performers, so athletes and business owners. And more specifically, and this was it was something that I just fell into, but I was working with a lot of extreme sports athletes, so mixed martial arts, motocross riders, trick riders, the kind of sports where it is many times like a life or death kind of situation. And I realized two things. First of all, that it took someone very unique to be able to function well in life or death situations, to not fall into, kind of disassociating or to not fall into a complete panic response. But I also realized that a lot of the people who chose to get into the kind of sports where, you're throwing yourself off these gigantic ramps, or you've got someone who's trying to punch you in the face or, rip your arm out of its socket, a lot of these people had come from some sort of a traumatic background. And, dare I say it, it's not a normal person who wants to do something like that. And so I started to realize that, there was only so far that we could get these individuals whilst looking at the mindset side of things a lot of what really kind of moved the needle and propelled them forward was looking at all of the stuff from their past that they hadn't been willing to look at. And so that's how I kind of transitioned from working with high performers to working predominantly with trauma for high performers. So that's the journey in a nutshell.
That's really interesting. And so, did you find that once you heal the trauma of these people, they might have different like behavior, or maybe not that big of an urge to, for example, beat someone up, or for example, their intention behind what they were doing was changing? Or how did you find, like, what were the results of working with that?
Yeah, I mean, I found, and this was always the interesting thing to play with when it came to these sports. I found one of two things happened. For some people, it was like it anchored them even deeper into a sense of purpose within that sport. You know, it was sort of like all of these things that happened to me so that I could find this sense of purpose and find this sense of inspiration and direction within this sport.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other kind of group of people, it was like suddenly they'd just taken off, you know, their blinkers, and they were like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't even like this sport. Like, I was literally only doing this sport to kind of outrun this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was quite interesting because obviously, you know, these individuals were hiring me to improve their sport. But for some of them, not all of them, they would kind of, it would actually have, it would completely redirect them. But the beauty in that was that, you know, in the sense that when it redirects them, it wasn't really their thing to begin with. So it opens up this whole other beautiful journey of finding that thing that is theirs.
So you lost your job pretty much while doing your job.
Well, I mean, the cool thing was that I got to kind of pivot with them, and it became then this journey of like, okay, well, what is the thing that lights you up? Like, let's start to, you know, create a really aligned, high performing lifestyle centered around that thing that does inspire you. So yeah, my job description just shifted.
Yes, I understand. But it's just pretty funny because, you know, it often happens that, and it happened with me and my clients as well, that once we heal the trauma, either they completely changed their career or they started doing it in a different way, because the intention, I feel like it's like fear-based versus love-based intention behind what you're doing, right? Either you are coming from fear of like, okay, this happened, so now in order for me to not feel unworthy or not feel scared or not feel powerless, I'm gonna do this thing, versus, oh, I actually love doing this thing and that's why I'm gonna do it, right? So the whole intention behind it can completely shift. And one of my for example stories with one of my clients is like, Jordan, actually, he was on my podcast. He was a hardcore salesperson, achiever, and, you know, like super high performing, whatever. And then we did some completion process session, which is trauma work, basically. And then he became a rapper. And then he completely just dropped the sales and became a rapper. And then after some time, now he's doing rap and sales, but sales from like a conscious, soul-based, centered level that is completely different to how he was doing it before. So he came, you know, it was a full circle of him coming actually like, okay, I actually like it, but without this pressure of having to do this and just doing it for money or success or whatever else was there in his intention, in his mind, right? Now he's actually like, oh, this is so aligned, I'm coming from my heart, I really want to help these people, and it's a completely different business, although the principles or the things that he's doing might be very similar, but the energy behind it is completely different. And it's so good to know that, yeah, to know, to look into yourself and see, why am I actually doing this? Like, am I actually enjoying this? Do I love it? Or is it based on some kind of childhood thing that my dad told me or whatever, right? And then it just shifted my whole perspective on life. And now I'm just going on automatic program that was just put there since childhood. So yeah, it's so good to know. And it's a really, really nice, inspiring story. So thank you so much for sharing. And so you've been working with a lot of high performance people, let's say. So I'm curious to know, what are your best tips for people who really want to perform high in all areas of life, really? And also, maybe what are the differences in mindset, you know, in people who are not performing that well, or and the people who are really performing well, because I think it's all about mindset, right? It's not really about, I mean, of course it's
Mm.
taking action too, but if you don't have the right mindset, then taking action is not going to really get you anywhere. So yeah, what are the differences and
Mm.
what are your best tips?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to take it from a level deeper than mindset. A lot of the work that I do deals with the nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
and so the nervous system is basically it's our operating system. You know, think of it as like almost it's what determines our bodily responses, and so there's there's two types of people, and this is a really cool thing, and this is definitely something that I found through working with a lot of high achievers and high performers, is that, you know, there's when we experience trauma, we do one of two things. We either become the kind of person who underfunctions in society. So think of that as the person who can't get out of bed, who, you know, basically shuts down and freezes, and just getting through day to day is a struggle. And then some people go the opposite way and they become like overachievers, and they're basically outrunning a lot of their trauma, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them are just survival mechanisms. One is, okay, well, let's just shut everything out and shut down completely. And the other is, let's strive and kind of keep just trying to outrun this. And so, sorry, I totally just lost my train of thought. What was your question originally?
About the tips for high performance and the mindset, maybe nervous system difference between the low performing and high
Yes.
performing people.
Beautiful. I see where I was going now. I was circling back around. So the difference between, and when I say high performer, I want to talk about the people who are true high performers, who are people who, like you said, they're high performing from a place of love, from a place of alignment, from a place of inspiration, rather than high performing from the perspective, I'm just trying to outrun and avoid all of this stuff that happened to me that's left undealt with. Very different energy. And that's what I'll speak to, is the difference between the survival mentality, which, if you think of an animal in the wild, is either shut down, so freeze, faint, play dead; fight, which is, you know, defend, attack, or run, right? And so, again, the under functioning survivors are the ones who go into that freeze response and shut down. The over functioning survivors are the ones who, you know, are like, go, 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 you know, keep myself busy, stay productive, like, oh, I'm such a high achiever, and they use it as this badge of honor. And so the difference is, are you coming from survival, or are you coming from what I call thriving? Surviving versus thriving. And the energy is, from the outside looking in, they can actually look quite similar, but the energy of it is very different. You know, it's the difference between, like you said, love and fear. Are you doing it because you're trying to earn your father's love? Are you doing it because, you know, if you're making 6 or 7 figures a year, then that's the thing that's going to have you finally feel like you fit in, or that's the thing that, you know, is going to have you finally feel safe, or is going to, you know, make you feel like you were good enough when you were poor as a child? Or is it coming from, you know, I'm going to go and create this thing in the world because that's what deeply lights me up. That's the thing that has me feel centered within myself. That's the thing that allows me to make my world and the world of that, you know, and the world at large a better place. And so I think when we start to move out of that survival way of being and start to really step into thriving and having a purpose that's bigger than just ourselves, we start to become a lot more, we're no longer functioning from the amygdala, which is the animal part of the brain, the primitive part of the brain. Instead, we're functioning from the executive center, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for rational thought, that's responsible for creativity and resourcefulness. And so when we start to tap into that part of the brain, like, the world is at our fingertips. We're able to literally create anything. And we start to be a lot more discerning with our time. We start to be a lot more discerning with our focus. We start to value ourselves more deeply. We start to become really intentional with how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, where we put our focus. All facets of life become deeply purposeful rather than just being like, oh, wake up, tick the box, go back to sleep kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yes, and I can resonate with that so much. And even yesterday, I had a session with a friend of mine who is a very high achiever, and it was a parts work session where one of his parts has decided in childhood that only through hard work and only through achieving he can be successful and he can get somewhere in life, just because his father told him that. And then the other part of him was this like creative, free flowing, almost like, kind of more like childlike energy in terms of, yeah, everything is possible and I can create anything and I don't have to put any pressure and I don't have to, struggle and put any hard work. And then it's just a decision that we have made at some point in our life that kind of like switched, as you said, like you come from one part of the brain or the other part of the brain, but actually this other part of us that is just free flowing and can achieve things easily is still there. It's just that we suppressed it based on some experiences that told us, oh no, this is not the way how I'm going to be loved, how I'm going to be approved, right? So yeah. So what do you feel like people should do if they are not really performing very high and they really want to? What steps do they need to take to really be in this place where they are like, okay, now I can come from a pure intention and now I can really feel like it lights me up and it's going to be with more flow and divine creativity and all these things.
So two parts to this. The first being, heal your trauma, basically. Most people are unknowingly, if we're operating from that survival state, it's because there's a predator, quote unquote predator, that we're still trying to outrun. Whether that be a memory, conscious or not, of something that happened when we were young or something that happened in the past, or whether it's something like literally just the stress of our day-to-day job. We live in a society now where the body actually hasn't evolved to be able to handle the level of stress that we place ourselves under on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it could literally be, it could be a memory of something past, or it could be a present situation like getting stuck in traffic on your way to work every morning. That could be the thing that's throwing you into survival. So figuring out what the thing is that you're consistently trying to survive, and making a change. So whether that be healing those past traumas or getting out of the job that you hate, or removing the person from your life that keeps bringing a toxic energy in, so that then the system can start to learn how to relax. And we can start to come back into that place of feeling centered and a little bit more intentional, a little bit more present, rather than always, like in this kind of chaotic survival state. So that's the first part. The second part is getting clear on, and I just want to frame, this can be quite difficult if you're still in that survival mode, right? But getting really clear on, well, what is it that I actually want from myself? And the reason why this can be difficult is if we're in that survival state, and again, if we think of animals in the wild, like if you're being chased by a tiger, you're not going to sit down and go, okay, so what do I want for myself? Let me just sit down and journal and start to, you're literally like, oh my God, I need to survive this threat. So it's really important to kind of draw to completion whatever the predator that's on your back is, to bring that to completion so that you can start to come out of that stress response. But then start asking yourself the question, well, what do I actually want for myself? What deeply lights me up? What has me feel? What cracks my heart open? What has me feel alive? What would I jump out of bed for every morning? And once we can start to tap into that, then we can slowly start to pivot and make changes in alignment with that big vision. And I know a lot of people do struggle with this, like that when there is that question of, well, what is it that you desire? They're like, oh my God, I don't know. So I really encourage, start with what you know and let it grow, and it could be literally just looking at, well, what are the things I don't like about my life right now? Well, my boss is kind of a jerk, so maybe I need to, change jobs or find a situation where I maybe don't have to be around him so much. Or, I struggle with, I don't know, my relationship. Well, maybe I need to find some ways to have better communication. So looking at, well, what is it that I don't want? What do I not love about my life right now? And then maybe from that, starting to get more clarity on what do I want.
And then taking action on that, right? Based on the clarity that you already have. Because I feel like for some people, it's like, yeah, okay, I already know that, but it's so safe, and I'm so certain that I'm gonna get this salary per month. And okay, my boss is a jerk, but at least it's safe, right? So I think taking action and
Yeah.
stepping out of your comfort zone is an important factor here. Because if you are not up for just going out of your comfort zone and doing something new, you're just going to be stuck with the same things, with the same patterns all the time, and actually you're not going to be happy and fulfilled. So you need to be brave also to make changes in your life based
Hmm.
on your new understanding of yourself and the world, right? Because it's like you always, yeah,
Hmm.
you're always if you go out of your comfort zone, you're always going to grow. Otherwise you can be for 20 years in the same freaking unfulfilling job and nothing is going to change. But yeah, I resonate a lot with what you were saying. And so I'm curious, why did you decide to work with women specifically?
Honestly, actually, a couple of reasons. I mean, I grew up. I was the only girl amongst. I had an older brother. I lived on a street with all of his friends. All of my cousins are male. I have a couple of female cousins, but they're much older than me, so we never really had that connection. But I got so used to being the only girl amongst all guys, working in extreme sports, male dominated. My whole life was kind of centered around, men, basically, always surrounded by men. So there was one element of, I guess, healing my relationship with women. There was kind of like this resistance to it. And I'm a big believer that the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek.
Oh
So
yes.
anything that I was that resistant to, I'm like, ooh, there's something in this for me. So there was kind of that element of like a selfish reason of wanting to heal that. And also because I had grown up around men, um, I've always been very connected to my tomboy. I've always been very, um, very connected to my masculine energy. And so as I went through my own healing process and started to become more and more connected to my inner feminine, and my feminine expression, then it just kind of naturally progressed that it just made sense to start working with more women. And obviously, being a female myself, I can resonate with a lot of what my clients have been through in a way that I maybe can't with men. I still do work with men, but I'm never going to be a man, so I can never fully comprehend what they've been through.
Hmm.
So that was one piece of it, and the other piece was, and this is like full transparency, it's just easier to market to women and probably a lot more fun. Like you can use fun colors and like, I don't know, cheetah print and like just all that fun stuff. So I was like, it was kind of selfish in that sense.
Yeah, I understand that. And yeah, I get both of the sides really, because for example, I'm starting a new program now for men, for high achievers that are male, because I feel like, okay, maybe they need this element of feminine energy, and they need this element of like, hey, let's actually have some joy in our life, not only achieve for money, but actually let's bring some more feminine energy. And so that could be valuable as well, to like have a polarity in a way. But also, as you said, you can
Totally.
relate to women more because you've been through the same things. So I think both sides are really great to work with. And I honestly feel like
Absolutely.
if I could have both man and a woman as a coach, I think that would be the best, because like, they bring different qualities. So I think it's great to work with both. But yeah, it's so cool that you say selfish reasons. But I feel like, first of all, everyone is selfish somehow, because like there's no, we are
Definitely.
individuals. We always have the reasons to do things. Even if we are so selfless, it's still because we want to gain something like love, connection, appreciation, whatever it is. So anyway, we are selfish. Or maybe selfish is like very bad connotation word, but maybe more like self-centered, because we just
Mhm.
base decision on ourselves. So it's, even the most selfless people do it because they want to be a good person, or they want to gain something out of helping others. So I feel like there is no such thing as like selfish per se, in terms of like a wrong thing. I think everything we do is selfish.
Yeah.
And just wanted
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
say that.
Absolutely. I love that you've added that because I'm very aware, listening to you kind of reflect that back to me, the word selfish for me is the most neutral word ever. Like it's neither good nor bad. And so when I speak it, I sometimes forget that, oh, the word selfish carries a lot for a lot of people. So I love that you've shared that, because I agree. I actually think that being selfish is one of the most selfless traits. Like I think it's a beautiful trait, and it opens up the opportunity for us to be to be deeply of service when we're willing to put ourselves first. So thank you for
Yes.
bringing that up.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you don't fill your own cup, you're never gonna be able to give to someone else. Like, and this is so stupid that this word is so bad in a way. Used in the society as something bad. In the same way as like in Poland, for example, when you say, and I'm in English probably similar, but in Poland, the word shameless is such a bad word. It's like you have no shame, and it's like
Mm,
what the hell? It's actually a good thing if I don't have shame. Like, why is that bad? Why is
totally.
so charged? It's like, oh, you're shameless. And it's like, yeah, that's
Mm,
great that I
yeah.
don't have shame inside, but it's such a bad thing to be that, right? It's just the language, it's just the collective
Mm,
consciousness and the emotional charge we put behind it. But it's just silly. It's just, it shouldn't be like that. But I feel like a lot of people, and I was this kind of person as well, who always like sacrificed myself for others or thought about others first before myself. In the past, I was a people pleaser, right? But really, I see now that I've done it only because I felt good doing this, or I felt like I'm getting love, I felt like I'm getting approval. So everyone is saying kind of like taking action based on that. So yeah, let's just break down this whole idea of selfishness being bad, and just let's bring a new meaning to it. Because I think if you're, as I said, if you're really focused on yourself and you give yourself the love and meet your needs, then you can give way more to others and can be way more of service, way more selfless in a way. And the reality is that we are both, right? Because on the higher level of consciousness, we are one anyway. So, you know, in this or other way, like it doesn't really matter, because we are both, we are individuals and one at the same time. We are selfless and selfish at the same time. So, if we can embrace the wholeness of ourselves, that's the beauty. I think that's the healing, right? Because we don't have the ego attachment to one or the other. We can really just be both and hold the polarities together. So I think that's really great. And so I would love to talk about one more thing with you that I really am like, this is the moment that I've been waiting for, about feminine power. Because I feel like I struggled a lot with feeling powerful, and I started my self-development journey from meeting a person who was introducing me to that, and he was a man, and we were meditating a lot on chakras. And for example, when we meditated on solar plexus, we like, because our meditation was based on emotions, so when we wanted to work on solar plexus, we wanted to feel power, right? And I struggled so much with feeling power in a feminine way, because obviously for men it's like, yeah, imagine yourself as like, the super strong and like powerful warrior or whatever, right? And for a woman it's like, that's not really resonating as much. And for me it was a really big problem at the beginning too, and of course because of the trauma and feeling powerless in the past, and having a parent who was overpowering me with their perspective or whatever. But I really am curious about your perspective, like how to awaken the feminine power, and what does it mean to you? What is the feminine power in your view?
mm. Well, to answer in regards to what my view is around what feminine power is, I think that, there's so many different feminine archetypes, and I think that they're all equally powerful. So when we look at the maiden archetype, the maiden is the young, I guess, innocent woman. And I think there's such a beautiful power in this kind of like childlike archetype, of the feminine. Then you've got the queen archetype, and the queen is the woman who, like she lovingly looks over her kingdom, and she rules over this kingdom, with the intent of, the good of all. We have the Amazon, or the warrior archetype, the female warrior archetype, and that is, I guess, more of your sort of, did you grow up with Xena? Did you ever see Xena, Warrior Princess, on TV? Yes, yeah, yeah. Yes, I love that show growing up. That kind of archetype of like the strong, powerful, like physically, like the fighter archetype, and then we have um, the crone archetype, which is like the wise woman, and that's the woman who's come into, she's um, post menopause and has sort of really anchored into like years and years of experience in order to have this wisdom that's earned. And so I think like a woman, feminine power is there's no one size fits all, and feminine power is birthed the moment we own that we have it, right? However that may look, and recognizing that as women, there's no right way and there's no wrong way. And the more you give yourself permission to just be exactly who you are, the more you're actually able to draw on these different parts, stripping away trauma, stripping away shame, stripping away the stories of, oh, people are going to think I'm selfish if, I go and do this thing for me. The more we strip that away, the more we're able to access the queen archetype, the warrior archetype, the maiden, the croon, the enchantress, the all of these different aspects of the feminine. And yeah, I think that's a really powerful woman when we can see the value in all of them and we can draw on them at different times. And I think the key to unlocking them is, and I feel like I'm repeating myself here, so please excuse me, but it's coming to heal those traumas and start to feel really safe within your body, start to feel really safe within who you are, to draw to completion those trauma states or those stress states, so that we're no longer running, we're no longer the world no longer feels like an unsafe place, and instead we can start to tap into a connection with a higher purpose. We can start to tap into a connection with, that we're held and we're everything is always working out exactly as it needs to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and even though you repeat yourself with the trauma, I feel like it's so important to repeat it, because this is really the key to unlocking everything in our life, to unlock
Yes.
the highest potential in our life, because we are stripping away all these layers and filters and beliefs that were placed in our subconscious mind that are running the show, right? So actually I really love
Yeah.
that you're highlighting this, because it's really true. And I want to repeat something that I've already mentioned on this podcast one day. I don't remember with whom, but I also was working on, because I do belief work as well with the method called Psych K. And once I was working on this belief, I know how it feels to feel safe in my body. And really the understanding came to me that in order to feel fully safe in your body, you need to feel safe feeling everything, right? Because if you are
Mm,
in your body and you have, for example, anger, and makes you feel unsafe, then you're never going to feel safe in your body fully if you don't feel safe feeling everything, right? Because there's always going to be something triggering you emotionally. So unless you feel safe and open to feeling all the emotions, you're not going to feel safe in yourself, right? So I just wanted to bring it up, because it's so important to know that the real like peace comes from being accepting of anything that comes, right? This is the real peace, and this is, I feel like, the state to for a lot of people who they are really aiming for, and they maybe don't even know about it. But it's so kind of simple but not easy to just be okay with any experience that comes. And I feel like for me it took years to reprogram my mind through experience as well, through healing all these layers of trauma, to really be like excited about being triggered, to be like, oh yeah, this person triggered me, and being like super, super happy with it, because I know that once I go through it, once I resolve this childhood trauma, once I heal this stuff, right, I'm gonna have even more fulfilling life, and I'm gonna feel like my life is better and better. But it took some practice, and it took some understanding of me and how I work to be like super happy to be triggered, right? And super happy to be angry, super happy to be sad, and all these things, because now I see the reward more than I see the process of being in negative emotions, right? I see more clearly, like, okay, this is going to help me, rather than, oh shit, I got triggered again and I have so many things to work through and I'm never going to heal fully, and it's a whole life journey, of healing, and wow, when is it going to end? But it's not really about the aim of healing everything. It's about constant improvement and the process of becoming better and better version of yourself. And this is how I see it. So now, I really am so happy when something, quote unquote bad happens, in terms of like, someone will piss me off or whatever, or my mom will say something that will trigger something that, she was saying when I was like 3 years old, or whatever else it is. I'm actually so grateful to all these people who trigger me, because without them and without these negative emotions or arguments or whatever it is, I wouldn't have the opportunity to expand and to grow. So I feel like it is really crucial,
Mhm.
and I really encourage everyone who maybe is still within this mindset of like, oh my god, there is so much to heal. Like, I remember when I first did my completion process training, this inner child work training, I was just like, oh my freaking god, like there is the whole Pandora box that we are opening now, so many programs in my subconscious mind. Oh, when am I gonna feel at peace with it, right? And it but then when I saw how much changes it brings, how many changes I can see in my life after going through each trauma, I'm like, wow, this is actually exciting, instead of like, oh my god, there's so much
Mm,
work, right? And so what's your perspective on that?
yeah.
Do you also feel excited when you're triggered?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think um, we we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we are master creators, and so when I have something pop up in my life that triggers me, I get so excited of like, oh my god, first of all, like I created this, and second of all, like what a beautiful gift for me to get to unwrap this and start to look at like, okay, well, how when in those moments where a situation doesn't feel so good, going, okay, well, how do I actually want this to feel, and how can I get like so creative and resourceful and really come even deeper within myself in order to like unravel this situation that maybe doesn't feel so good, and reshape it into the thing that's exactly what I desire. Because I believe that everything happens for us, through us, and as us. Nothing ever happens to us. And I know that can be quite a challenging kind of perspective for a lot of people to get their head around, but I really do believe that everything is a gift. And so, yeah, I think there is definitely an element of when we first begin this work of, oh my God, there's so much to work through, but there's always new levels. And even coming from that place of like, oh, there's so much to do, I'm so overwhelmed, like that in and of itself is actually kind of a trauma response. It's like an impatience. It's like, I don't have enough time, it has to be done now. So the more we start to heal those traumas and chip away at it, the more we start to go, okay, everything's actually perfect exactly as it is. It's not to say that there isn't still work to be done, because there's always more work, but it's you can kind of get to this place where you're so in love with exactly where you're at that the work is just like, it's always going to be there, and you can be inspired to keep striving, but also at the same time be deeply anchored in where you are.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yes, I love everything you're saying because I resonate with it so much. And I'm really curious to know if you could maybe give us example of maybe one specific trauma that you have personally gone through and something that it has unlocked in your life, just so that people have, like a little example of, okay, so they are talking about all this trauma healing and whatever, but how does it actually affect our life? Like, what is the real life example of how this can help us, right? So do you have an example
Mhm.
that you are happy to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's actually very present in my world at the moment. So this feels even juicier to share. And it's probably one of my, I guess, I'm going to say like, I call them lower T and capital T traumas. So lower T traumas refers to, or sorry, lowercase t traumas refers to, I guess, more of like the things that we wouldn't really consider to be trauma. And then the capital T trauma is more of like the obvious ones, like
Mm-hmm.
experiencing, violence, or, a sexual assault, or something like that. So this is probably one of my lowercase t traumas, but I'm only just now starting to realize the extent at which it has impacted me.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I moved schools, and I had this group of really close friends at my old school. And when I moved schools, I had an argument with one of my best friends, and it kind of created this. And to this day, I still don't really know why this happened. I don't know what was set off within her, but she basically went on this process of turning all of my friends at that school against me. And it was kind of like the army that were against Briana. And I was getting a lot of like emails and social media messages and that sort of thing, basically bullying me. And at the time, it didn't phase me too heavily. Like I have a very thick skin, so I just kind of went about my day as per normal, and that was that. It was just kind of one of them things of, for whatever reason, they've got something against me now. And I've had this situation playing out in my life at present of, for whatever reason, one particular individual who has something against me, who has sort of actively gone out and kind of almost tried to skew people's perceptions of me. And it's been really interesting in the moments where it's come up, looking at it and going and noticing the small child within me, the small child of maybe 10 years old who had that happen back then, noticing her come up and letting her know that back then she may not have had the tools to deal with that, but I've got her, and that I'm not going to let anything happen to her, and that, like I'm here. And so it's been this really incredible journey the last month or so of me really anchoring into my power, anchoring into my boundaries, and anchoring into, again, that master creator kind of dynamic of like, okay, this experience may not feel that good. And how do I most desire it to feel? And how can I be so anchored in the experience that I want to have that I don't even notice what's going on in the outside world? Like, that's their experience. And it went from being something that, in the moment when it first happened, it really threw me. And as I said, I had that inner child come up and go, oh my God, like, why don't people like me? And then I caught myself in the moment, and this is after a lot of kind of work around really anchoring into how I want my life to look. But in that moment, I caught it and I went, okay, how do I desire this to feel? Well, I desire this to feel really light, and I desire this to, I'm here for fun. I'm here in this particular situation because I love what I'm here to do. And so I just stayed really connected to that. And as a result, the entire situation just kind of resolved itself. Like, it just sort of dissolved and, it still played out in the background, but I was so unaware of it that I was like, I'm fucking powerful. Like, holy shit, I'm literally the master creator. And so coming from that higher viewpoint, like, it only phases me if I allow it to phase me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was probably, that's my most present learning from previous traumas.
Thank you so much for sharing. This is really great. And yeah, I really love what you're saying about being a creator versus a victim. Because really, when you are taking these traumas, like when you're on board with them, when you're like, okay, I'm just gonna face it and I'm just gonna deal with it, then you really are taking responsibility. And when you take responsibility that it's you who needs to resolve your stuff, and then the external reality reflects what you have inside, right? So as you said, like, these people might still have their stuff, and they might still have the same perspective, but your internal and external world will be different, because then when you are not having the energy that it attracts through law of attraction these people and these situations into your life, you're pretty much set, because then the next time you're not going to attract these kind of people, and they were only there to help you look at yourself, to help you look at this inner child, to help you resolve this trauma. So they were actually also a gift for you, so that you can step up, be in your creator, be in your power, and really be like, okay, now I'm even more powerful than before, because now this trauma is not governing me anymore, and now I can respond differently next time that something like this happens. Or maybe it's not even going to happen again, because I don't need to resolve this anymore. I can just step through it and out of it. And so yeah, I really love what you're saying, that life is happening for us and not to us. And really on this podcast, like I've been talking to so many coaches and healers, and pretty much every single person had some kind of event that was traumatic or bad, quote unquote, that has brought them to do what they are doing now, which is amazing, right? And like I always say, if there was nothing, no polarity, we wouldn't experience compassion, we wouldn't experience forgiveness, we wouldn't experience so many things, and we wouldn't really even know the light without the darkness. So it's so important to really appreciate the darkness as well, and to really get the lessons from it that we can learn, because life is always about learning and growing and expanding. So yeah,
Mm,
thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story and the example. I feel like it helps people to see how this can play out in
mm.
our life. And so for everyone who would like to work with you, who resonate with you, and maybe they want to perform even higher, what's the best way to contact you and to check out what you're doing?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably the best way. So you can find me just by searching my name, Briana Bowley. So that's BrianaBowley. And I also do have a free resource. So this is for anyone who's looking to, start to bring in that discernment that I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, and start to brush up on your boundaries, start to really hone in your focus, and start to create space to get clear on what that that vision, that something greater than just yourself is. And so you can find that at www.fiercefreewoman.com.
Awesome. I love this website. Amazing. I love the name of it. It's great. Thank you so much, Brianna, for sharing everything you know, and for your beautiful energy and smiles and everything and stories. And yeah, it's been just so great to chat to you. And I really hope to connect with you in the future again. And I'm really, really grateful that you agreed to be on our podcast.
Oh, thank you. What an honor to sit and have this conversation. I love what you're up to.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for listening to us, being with us, supporting us. If you'd like to contact me, I am The Connection Catalyst on Instagram. I post some stuff, some reels, some posts. If you want to check me out, go there. Or to my website, www.connection-catalyst.com. Other than that, I am sending you so much love and so much gratitude for tuning in, and stay tuned to the next episode.